So we'll give it takes a second. Let's see here.
Am I waiting for you to send something?
Sure. Hey, everybody. We are live. And so we're going to give a few minutes for everybody to get here and for everybody to share it. If you're watching, please share the video so more people can see us. Please like and comment so that we know that you're watching. Let me just go here and tag Michael and John so that they can share it. I think I have to do it from. So what I would normally do is ask like an icebreaker question while we're all sharing, but give me a second. It's not finding John, so let's just start with Michael. Okay, yeah, it's being Facebook's often weird. Let me just try another option. Yeah, it's acting like your main profile doesn't exist for whatever reason, Michael. So let me
Mine?
Yeah, it's just Facebook being weird. Let me just send you.
I just shared it to both. So
okay.
I mean, you can twice double check and see if I didn't, but I feel like I did.
Yeah, I've stopped being overly concerned about that. I feel like the track record's been pretty good with both of us.
Yeah, it only took us.
I'm gonna send
4
it to
months.
You. Yeah, I'm gonna send it.
How do you do it again?
I'll send it to you, John, in a private message, and if you click on the link, then you can share it from there.
Okay.
This is for Facebook. I don't know if you want the YouTube one as well.
Facebook's fine.
Okay, so let me think of an icebreaker question while we're I guess since John's in a very late time zone, let's let the icebreaker question be: do you have a bedtime snack, and if so, what is it?
No, just a very English cup of tea. That's my lot.
That's very English. What do you put in your tea? How do you take your tea?
No biscuits, no crumpets?
No, I might have a little sort of rice cracker or something like that.
I was about to say maybe a cracker.
Yeah.
All right.
Even excuse me. Even when I was on the road, I wasn't one for the midnight meals or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
So.
How do you take your tea, though, since that's such a very British...
Oh, very British builder's tea. No sugar and milk.
Builder's tea. I get it. Like working man tea.
Exactly.
Nothing fancy.
None of your fancy stuff. No, none of your Earl Greys or mint or anything like that.
That is the first I've heard that expression, but I might have to steal it.
Yeah.
What about you, Michael? Do you got a bedtime snack?
No, I really shouldn't. Like none of it.
Neither should I.
I mean, if it happens, it's it's probably half a Cliff Bar. Like I'll just wake up and kind of and but mostly just how late I'm up. I'm usually just drinking water and surfing the internet and getting paralytic. That's it.
Yeah, I have always had trouble going to sleep if I'm hungry. So I've always had a bedtime snack. And when I was a kid, it was always a bowl of cereal. And as an adult, in trying to find something consistent and that I thought was healthy, I was going with a bowl of cereal again. And then now that I have all this post-COVID health stuff, I have a lot more doctors. And the doctors are like, no, actually, a bowl of cereal's probably less. It's probably more carbs in your bowl of cereal than in like a little bag of chips. Like that's not the. So I've been trying to.
Yeah, eat the Cool Ranch chips, then, dude. Call it.
So
my other alternative is I take those Goldie apple cider vinegar
Oh yeah.
The chewables. They kind of cut your appetite, man. You know, they're kind of sweet, so you just kind of and then you just mellow out. But you know.
True.
So if you're just joining us, we're going to start the official discussion in a few minutes. If you're watching the video, please share it to all the platforms, YouTube, Facebook, wherever you want to share it. I believe I've done all my sharing. John, have you had a chance to share it to your social media?
I've done that.
Okay, well we don't have to waste any more time then. We can we can go ahead and start talking then. So welcome to, I think this is episode 29 of Music Politics, and I will introduce my co-host, and then Michael, do you want to introduce our guest or should I?
No, go ahead, man. You usually lead it at the top, and then I kind of come after.
bat cleanup
the business, yeah.
So, well, first of all, my favorite co-host, of course, the best co-host I could ask for. I'm going to get it right on the first try. He's all the way over on the other side, over there.
Have to practice already, like doing that, and he's over there.
One of the best musicians I know, and one of the smartest people I know. I always like listening to his opinion on anything, whether it's an opinion I've heard before, whether it's an opinion I agree with. He's just everything he contributes, whether it's to music or to other stuff, is always fascinating. Ladies and gentlemen, the best drummer on the planet, Mr. Michael Bland.
Oh, Lord have mercy. You only like my opinions because they're strong. People with strong opinions are entertaining.
No.
And also easy to take pot shots at. So, people with strong opinions, it's they're rendering themselves exposed. So
that's very funny. And I'm not going to say I don't like that you have strong opinions. I love that you have strong opinions, but that's not the reason. The thing that I honestly like is because whenever we talk about anything, it's either, okay, yeah, I get it. Like either I already agree or let me give that some thought. Or it's like, okay, well, I definitely have never seen it that way before, but that was worth considering. Like there's never anything that doesn't trigger me to think about something. You inspire other people to analyze from different perspectives, and that's a rare quality.
I'm very I'm a big advocate of think for yourself, So I guess that's the thing, is that I'm open. I'm open to all perspectives. I think that's important just for growth, just as a human, just to not have these boundaries that make your brain stagnant or your idea about your environment.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess it's I kind of it's a posture that I think gets dialogue moving. If I have strong opinions, somebody's going to strongly object, and then we're going to get into a thing that may, yield interesting results, or So, I guess that's why I'm so like that. But on my,
can you get it right?
Yeah, I got it right the first time. I'm my far left or right? That part I'm still confused about. He hails from Madison, Wisconsin. Survivor of COVID. A guitar picking, Hammond playing, son of a gun. Holy Ghost on white folks. Dan Spiffy Neuman. All right.
Well, I will do a little bit of an introduction of our guest, and then we'll let him introduce himself some more, because I think he can probably. It's just another one of those guests where no matter what I say, I'm barely going to scratch the surface. So,
oh yeah.
A few weeks ago, Michael and I were in a private listening party for Phil Lassiter's album, and if you don't know Phil Lassiter, he's a phenomenal horn player and horn arranger. Worked on many gospel records. Him and I have done many gospel records together, and worked with Prince. So him and Michael have that in common, and just across the board, in my opinion, one of the best, funkiest horn arrangers out there. And he put out a new record that you guys should all go check out. It's called Live and Love. And there were a bunch of other people that were invited to this private listening party. and he'd commented that, hey, you know, everybody in this event has is somebody that you should know, and you should start kind of looking to see who's to your left and who's to your right. And then we saw the old guy with all the gold and platinum records behind him. And I can't remember if it was me or Michael that Googled him first and said, "Oh my God, he worked with who? He did what?" And then Michael said, "We got to talk to this guy." And
this was the comment section, the private chat. We were discussing it. Like, dude, you know that's the guy that did.
I had no idea. I've never heard of his name
Life
before.
of Brian, dude. Like he's major. He ain't got all that gold on the wall for nothing.
So, I guess, yeah. Look, yeah. Apparently, he appears to be the across the pond Quincy Jones, and so we can't wait to hear some stories from horn arranger, producer, conductor, and horn player. Often credited horn player, in fact. Maybe not so much the other things. John Altman.
I think that he's more known as a horn player here than probably even in the UK, I'd say.
I was making a joke because of what we talked about before we went on the air, that he's credited as a horn player, but not.
Oh, I see.
Yes.
They're not going to get that. That's not a red herring for the audience.
He'll tell that story later, and then they'll go back and say, "Wow, Dan was really funny."
I'm sorry. Are you annoyed by us already, John?
Not at all. No.
All right. You know, with English people, they always look annoyed at everybody else. You realize?
No,
that.
just tell me when to start.
Okay, right ahead. Here's before we get into it, I need to know, like, do you like to sort of ramp up, or can I jump right in?
No, you can. Yeah, I mean, I'm happy.
Right. Okay. How often do you see a movie and the score just makes you upset? Like, it's so awful, you want to walk out?
I try to see the best in everything I see, or understand where it comes from. Let's say that. So I'm the same with anything. You know, if I listen to a player, if I listen to an arrangement, if I listen to a production, or if I see a movie, I always like to think, why have they done that, and what result do you get from hearing it like that? You know, what choices did the people make? And I think a lot of it is because quite a while ago, I let go of all that. I should have done that. I could have done this. I ought to have done that. Maybe I could have done this. And that was sort of beaten out of me in a way by working on so many commercials, because although on movies, I only got relieved of my duties once, and that was before I'd written a note, and I got paid in full. So I saw that as a result rather than as a sort of a trial, you know.
I'll tell you what, that happened to me also. Me and Sonny Thompson, when we were playing for Prince in the 90s, we got an opportunity to score a film, and before they heard a note, we were fired.
You're fired.
But they still paid
you in full.
Yes.
Oh, good.
It went right to video.
Unfortunately, no. I mean, this was supposedly a big movie. I don't know if I should name it, but
don't feel any obligation to drop dime. We're just we don't want anybody getting in trouble.
I became the victim of a power struggle, basically, between the director who wanted me and the star who sort of took the movie over as his own and really wanted his own people involved. So eventually down the line, after he'd sort of got rid of everybody he could possibly get rid of, he looked round and said, right, well, this guy's got to go as well.
Who's left?
I hadn't written a note. You know, that was the thing. All right, you know, you could say, well, I don't think his score is very good, you know, but I don't like the look of him because he's not my guy. Okay, fine, bye.
That happens a lot in this business, really. You know.
But the thing was, the point I was making, I think, was that when I did commercials, a lot of the time, even if you didn't know it, you were in competition with someone else. Okay. So you would do a track and then it wouldn't go through. So you might actually sit there and go, oh, I'm so torn to pieces because what I did hasn't been accepted. Or you go, okay, on to the next one.
Sure.
And that became my attitude all the way through. So I never really had that could have, should have, would have mentality going for me anywhere. And part of it as well, I think, was not actually getting rode off gigs that I did. And I worked virtually non-stop for, well, how long? I mean, nearly 50 years, basically. So it never became an issue because I never got sort of into that slough of despond, you know, where you lose a gig and you think, oh God, everything's over. You know, if I lost something, I was moving on to something else. So it was okay, right? Pick up the pieces.
Yes.
Get to the next job.
You have a very buoyant sort of manner about yourself.
Yeah, it's also a sort of self-confidence in a way, which is not arrogance, but it's like I know what to do, and I know I do it well. You know, not saying that I'm a genius or anything, but
you don't have to. Everybody else has said that already about you.
Yeah, no. If someone hires you to do a job, they're already investing a lot in what you do.
Yes, they believe in you from the get.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, you know, if I got calls from, as I say, from George Michael or Paul McCartney or Rod Stewart or Tina Turner or Barry White or any of these people or Titanic or whatever it was, I would think, oh, you know, they want me because they want me.
Right.
And then I would give them what I felt worked for them. I would put in enough of myself, I guess,
yes,
to make them think, oh yeah, we made a good move hiring that guy.
Well, or at least to recognize your style and your.
Yeah, I wouldn't suffuse it with like, oh right, this is the way I write, because as you know, you would never play for or write for Rod Stewart in the same way you would for Tina Turner or George Michael or Simple Minds or whoever it was.
Yes.
And that attitude sort of really carried me through all my writing.
Just for people who might not know, can you clarify that all the examples you're referencing are in fact people and projects that you've worked for and worked on?
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
I just in case there's people listening that didn't know, you know, when he talks about getting a call from Paul McCartney, that happened.
Anybody he's talking about are people that he's
actually Michael on the same day.
Yes. These people are not just people it's not like, for instance, you know, these are not hypothetical people. Yeah. These are real people John Altman has had an effect on. So,
well, George Michael, for example, rang me at home and oh, can I speak to John, please? It's George Michael. And I thought, okay, who's winding me up, you know? And I started talking to him and he said, you're the only person who can do this with me. I thought that's a bit melodramatic. But then he said he'd heard a record that I'd done and he said, that's what I want. You know,
that was the Alison
Moyet.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when I got in the studio with him, you know, I mean, I arranged the whole thing, the rhythm section, everything, you know. So I was in the middle of it. And on a break, he said, you know, you inspired me to become a musician. And I went, you are kidding, aren't you? He said, no. His father owned a restaurant where I grew up. And when he was 5 years old, he would sit on the steps of the rehearsal space next door where my teenage band rehearsed.
Okay.
And this teenage band, I mean, you know, they were all at school. I was at another school. But the band was Chaz Jankel, who wrote I Know Corrida and all the Endures hits. Pete Van Hook, who was the drummer of Mike and the Mechanics and Van Morrison.
All right.
Rick Parnell, who was the drummer in Spinal Tap.
Whoa!
This was our teenage band,
Okay.
so it was pretty inspirational. I guess.
Sounds like a really good band.
It was an amazing band. We frightened Jeff Beck. I know that.
Well, all right.
With him, and it was like, oh my god, who are these people? But no, I mean that was interesting with George because at one point during the phone call he said, I said to him, well, I didn't produce that old devil called Love, and he said, yeah, but you did all the work. And I thought, well, that's quite shrewd because he knew that as the arranger of the record, I'd actually put the whole thing together, and the producer had sat there and, okay, we'll mix it. But he had said, look, I don't know anything about this type of music. You better take charge, which is exactly what happened with Björk with It's So Quiet. Same thing.
Wow. Yeah.
They let me really have full reign,
Do you, I mean, it may seem like a funny question, but do you prefer that?
I like being given my head, as it were, particularly on movies. Not. I'll qualify that in one way, which is I never ever had to do a demo of anything I wrote, and that even goes till the very end of my film career. I didn't demo anything. All the big numbers like the tank chasing GoldenEye, Always Look on the Bright Side of Life, the ship's orchestra on Titanic, no demos. I just walked in with the music. All the records that are behind me, no demos. I walked in with the arrangement. And if the producer didn't like it, he'd say, take the strings out in that first chorus. I go, okay.
Clean it up and keep moving. Yeah,
forget the French horn. Okay, move letter B to letter A, and that's how we did it. I didn't spend hours sitting in a room with samples, sort of trying to get together an approximation of what I was going to do.
I'm getting the sense that you don't have to. I think because I did go doing some homework. And do you have perfect pitch?
No, I have relative pitch. Unlike my family, who most of whom had perfect pitch.
Okay. So you don't really need an instrument in front of you if you have.
Oh no, I can write sitting at a table. I mean, I've written quite a lot of charts.
Yeah.
Away from keyboards, away from everything.
The scene in Amadeus where Mozart is just
writing
the pool table and he's just.
Well, I orchestrated for a lot of other composers like Elmer Bernstein and Ruchi Sakamoto, and the movie The Sheltering Sky I orchestrated sitting in a deck chair at a sports match with headphones on,
Oh wow! Okay.
No, sit on the train or a plane or something, a flight to LA, I would write an arrangement.
How often does it, are you assured of the results during the process?
Oh, sorry, you broke up then. Say again.
I was asking if, how do you maintain your, how soon into the process do you know what the results are going to be?
Well,
you envision the thing from start to finish first?
Yes, pretty much. I mean, it depends. If I'm writing a movie score, it's slightly different. If I'm writing an arrangement, and I've got the song, and I see somebody's asked what relative pitch is, and relative pitch means that you don't actually hear, if you hear a note that's maybe C or D or whatever, you hear it in relation to the other pitches that you hear. So if somebody sings in the key of F major, say, and the first two notes are the fifth and the third, you know that that's what you're hearing. You're hearing a certain combination of notes in the key that you're particularly hearing it in. If you've got perfect pitch, you identify every note that you hear.
Yeah, see, I have that, which makes my life a living hell.
Oh, no, because my cousin is Simon Phillips, the drummer. And
Simon Phillips has perfect pitch?
He has perfect pitch, and it drives him mad.
Yeah, well, then I don't need to go any further to explain to you the headspace that goes along with it.
Oh, it drives you absolutely crazy. I couldn't bear it.
I was going to say,
my high school. Go ahead.
Maybe explain for the people listening that might not know why that drives you insane.
Well, because because the immutable laws of physics and air pressure and all these things affect the way that you hear. And but it's perfect pitch is this inner sense of I mean, I don't know what the degrees are in terms of like, is it 40, A440 or A442 or whatever. I have a sense for a center, a tonal center, and I can, identify it. I don't even have to concentrate. I hear when guitar players are out of tune, and
bugbear, isn't it?
The guitar player in Soul Asylum, Ryan Smith should hate my guts because if he's just a little bit out, if anything happens, if the wind blows wrong, my head's on a swivel.
Yeah. No, it'll drive you insane.
Yes. So when people say you're crazy, I go, yes, I realize that. So I don't.
Terrifying.
Love me anyway, but I'm
the interesting thing, I think, going back to my childhood, I could always hear. I mean, and I don't know why, but I could always hear an arrangement, and I could say to you, for example, oh, there's a bassoon playing along with the cellos for 4 bars, and then he stops. And there's an oboe playing with the violas, and the clarinet and the flute are in octave unisons, and then they split. And then I'm 7 years old.
You could identify the action. It's like you're doing a play-by-play.
How do I know that? How did I know that? And the thing was, I stopped formal music lessons when I was 11, and I haven't had one since. So by the time I was in my mid-20s, I was working a lot for record companies and artists and TV shows doing takedowns, which, for anyone who doesn't know, a group like the Stylistics or Don Williams, for example, or even Telly Savalas would fly into London, and they wouldn't bring sheet music under their arms. They'd just come in, but they would be appearing on variety shows on television. Mm-hmm. So my job was to listen to the record, write down what the arrangement was on the record.
Yeah. And
then adapt it for whatever orchestra they were going to perform with.
How much time were you given to do that?
Incredible. Very quick turnaround, like 2 days or, a day. It was extraordinary, and it's something that if you don't do it a lot, you lose the ability to do it because
so
you don't really want that ability particularly anymore.
No, that's
in the day or the 2 days, how many hours would it actually take you of listening to the music and writing on staff to translate the arrangement?
Not that long. I hate to sort of say stuff like this.
No. Be honest. Listen,
I was always incredibly quick, which is why I got hired to do a lot of things, whether it was commercials or the takedowns and stuff. And for example, something that you mentioned a while ago and mentioned again today, the takedown of the score for the Italian Job.
Oh, dude,
that took me a couple of months,
Michael's got about 50 questions just about that.
Yeah, I got to pick up the pace here, John, because there's a lot of ground we need to cover.
Okay.
All right. Let's see. Well, Well, let's just go to the Italian Job right now because I refreshed my memory.
It's a highlight
recently. Yeah, I'm trying to remember what was the situation in which you had to rearrange this. Like it was for when they were playing the movie.
They were playing the movie, and it's become a big thing. I don't know about in America, but big thing in Europe where they screen movies, classic movies, and they remove the whole musical soundtrack, and they have an orchestra performing live with the movie. So when a music cue that's in the film comes up, what you actually hear is an orchestra playing it live, which is, I mean, it's amazing, you know, to see Star Wars and
have the John Williams score being played
in front of you, Titanic, you know, while you're watching the movie. So my friend Tommy Pearson got the rights to do the Italian Job, and he contacted me, and basically through, I guess it was Paramount, I'm not 100% certain now, but they were able to send me a lot of the original scores from the recording sessions, the obviously the Quincy Jones scores that were used on the sessions. What was interesting, first of all, was that on a lot of occasions, they didn't match what was on the screen at all. So my assumption was that in the recording studio, the director would probably hear a cue and go, what about if we tried X, Y, Z?
Oh, no.
And then when they dubbed the film, they would have, let's say, a 3-minute cue or a 4-minute cue, in the middle of which they would cut in something completely unrelated. So you would have like an orchestra playing a sort of a, you know, very slow piece, whatever, that would just suddenly go to solo harpsichord or harmonica solo or
they're considering the action. They're not considering the integrity of the piece.
Yeah, and then
well, this scene that when we switch, we need to like highlight the action, like work with what's on the screen. Yeah,
which you sort of expect, you know, because whenever you do a film and you sort of relinquish the music to the film company, they can do whatever they like. If they like the cue that's numbered 1M12, they'll play it again and again, which is what they did in Lawrence of Arabia. Much to Maurice Shah's disgust, you know, why have you repeated the same cue over and over again? Yeah. And then he won an Oscar, so he wasn't too upset.
Yeah, he's shut up about it pretty quickly.
Yeah. And the same thing with my friend Anne Dudley when she did the Full Monty. Same cue over and over and over again, and she won an Oscar. You know, so I keep wishing that on one of my movies they might sort of just keep repeating the same thing.
And maybe you'll get your just due. You'll get your rewards. Yeah. Did you ever? I know you know Quincy, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Do you know how he felt about them manipulating the music like that?
Not really. I mean, funnily enough, for my book that I've just written, that's coming out in February, he's written a lovely foreword about me. So, and I mean, one of the highlights was actually singing with him on the stage at the Royal Albert Hall. A song from the Italian Job, you know,
what is it called?
Get a Blooming Move On. The self.
Oh, you guys, the last track on the Wow.
But what was interesting, for example, was that I had lunch completely by coincidence with a wonderful composer called Howard Blake.
I've heard of him, yes.
Howard wrote The Snowman, you know, which is every Christmas is shown. And I was telling Howard that I was transcribing the Italian Job. And he said, "Oh, that's interesting. I'm the harpsichord keyboard player on the film."
I was going to ask about how come they used so much harpsichord back then.
He was the harpsichord player on the soundtrack.
Wow.
And I said to him, well, you can probably answer this for me. There's a huge orchestral fugue in one cue. Brilliant, really complicated fugue. And yet on the movie, there's a harpsichord playing a jazz version of Greensleeves.
Right.
And he said, yeah, that's me, because the director said, I'm not sure about that fugue, Why don't the harpsichord play like a jazzy version of Greensleeves? It wasn't even written out. I sat there and improvised a jazz version of Greensleeves, but then I had to take it down from what he's playing,
Man.
Write out his solo and all his left hand. And
I think the harpsichord is the creepiest instrument in like movie scores. Like it does something to me, man. I don't know how to explain exactly.
Well, can I tell you a funny story that's almost related?
Sure.
I'm very friendly with George Fenton, the composer. And he told me when he was doing the movie Gandhi, he and Richard Attenborough and Ravi Shankar were discussing a particular moment in the film, which was quite scary. It was like one of the scariest scenes in the movie. Mm-hmm. And they were trying to decide what to do musically. And Ravi Shankar said, there's that Western instrument that puts fear and terror into our hearts. We should use that. But I can't remember what it's called. So George said, it must be like, is it a contrabassoon? No, it's and gradually they worked round to what it could be. It turned out to be a xylophone.
Whoa! All right, that strikes fear in the hearts of Easterners. The xylophone.
A xylophone. There's a bit of culture shock going on there, I think.
Wow. I see. That's what's the cue? Is it Britannia and Mr. Bridger?
Yeah.
Like that has like there's a lot of harpsichord in that.
That's right.
Yeah. I'm thinking about like Rosemary's Baby.
Yeah.
And like all these movies that got this creepy harpsichord going, and it's just like it
was a color, obviously, that 1968, when the film's done, there are no synthesizers. So,
sure. Mm-hmm.
And John Barry had pretty much commandeered the cymbalom or whatever it is, for like the Ipcrest file. And, so people were using sort of odd little sounds and trendy little sounds.
I suppose the theremin and like
theremins and on Martineaus and things.
But
like
Homer had they had the clavinet by then, right? Or was that later?
No, that would be about then. But okay. I think the harpsichord, I think was quite funny, and it's quite English and quite sort of. I don't know. It sort of it feels right in the score.
Well, it feels proper in the right context, but in other, it can turn so creepy just by adding.
Totally, yeah.
Just take two dissonant notes together.
That's the interesting thing about doing, particularly doing like action sequences in movies. Mm-hmm. It's a bit like climbing Mount Everest, and you get to the top and you go, I've done it. And there's another one opposite that you've got to climb 6 weeks later. So you're always looking for new ways to score whatever the scene might be. If you've got, and the thing about cliches, for example, like you think, if we have tremolo high strings, it's tension and something awful's going to happen. It sounds so obvious and trite and cliched, but it's a cliche because it works. So
I was going to ask you, where do you draw the line on that? Yeah.
Yeah. However much you try and get away from it, you go back to it because you think, I instantly want to make people think something's going to happen. Something's going to happen.
they're conditioned to know something's going to happen.
Yeah.
Because people have used that so much. It's like it's familiar to them. Yeah.
So I mean, there are two ways you can probably go. You can go with the cliche or completely against it. And
how often does going completely against it work out for you?
Well, you see, that becomes interesting when you're scoring comedy, because you can either score comedy as sort of Mickey Mousey, pratfall, wah, 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 wah. Yeah. Or you can go dead serious, like Elmer Bernstein in Animal House or Ghostbusters, where the scores are totally serious.
Yeah. And it somehow highlights the comedy, like the seriousness of the musical moment
highlights the comedy. Yeah. And I mean, I've scored a few obviously comedy films, and it's interesting because I think the choices have always worked. It's very funny. Funny, is that the right word?
Okay.
There are things you consciously think about, that it's not like slap happy, chuck a bit of music out here. Although it should be effortless, I mean, there's that old cliche that people leave the cinema and go, oh, I didn't realize there was music in that film. And people have said that to me, I wrote the music for X. Oh, I didn't know there was music. Oh, okay, right. Well, obviously it worked because it wasn't so intensive that it sort of took over the scene.
I remember when I was a kid, not too young, probably 17. I was doing a gig with somebody I had never worked with before in Minneapolis, where I live and where I'm from. And I asked him on the break, I said, how did I sound? And he said, you must have played good because I didn't hear anything. And it took me a minute to figure out what he was trying to say. But that's a very important tool to have in your arsenal, is how not to be heard.
Yeah.
Like how to not draw attention to yourself when you're not supposed to be drawing attention to yourself.
It's interesting, isn't it? And I mean, the best musical lesson I think I ever had was I'd been playing saxophone for maybe 3 years. And there was a double bass player in London called John Hart. And John came from, I think it was the Woolworths family. He was very well off. He lived in a very big house in North London.
Okay.
And Philly Joe Jones came to live with him.
Wow.
And I think the reason he came was because in Britain, it wasn't illegal you could register as an addict.
Oh, wow.
And
okay.
He wasn't allowed to work by the union, but he could teach and he could have jam sessions. So he had this jam session and I turned up and there were all these wonderful sax players playing like John Coltrane, brilliant.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
And it came to my solo, they're playing a 12-bar blues, and I thought, well, I can't do any of that, but also I don't really want to do any of that. I don't want to show like 1,000 notes and any technique I've got. So I played one note and I waited for a couple of bars and I played the same note again, and I played the same note and I did another one, and I played 3 notes and then I played the same 3 notes but the other way around, and I suddenly went, this is how you do it. This is it.
Mm-hmm.
I played like 4 choruses and sat down, and number finished. Philly Joe Jones came straight over to me, ignored everyone else, and he said, you sound like Joe Henderson.
Oh, wow, man.
Wow.
Yes.
I've got it. Accidentally, I've got it. And I've kept that mentality forever.
Yeah. It's always easier than you think. If you just let the music do what it's supposed to do.
Writing,
no muscle.
Same thought. Beginning, middle, end. Tell the story. Get out.
Same mentality. Same approach.
Yep.
I've long said that musicians play how they are, like socially.
Yeah.
I've had this theory for a while that if you dominate a conversation when you're talking to people, that's how you probably play when you get on stage.
Well, it was interesting because I actually said on another occasion, I said to Philly Joe, I said, you play differently for everybody you're playing behind. He said, of course I do. And I thought that was, yeah, absolutely got
That's
it.
Right.
Absolutely got it. It was like, yeah, if I'm playing behind this guy, I play like this. But if I'm behind this person, this is how I'm doing it.
Exactly. I played on a lot of
mentality.
Yes, I played on a lot of hit records, and people don't know it was me. Like they think of me as this. Oh, you're the dude who played drums with Prince, and the hat, and so you're probably very you're a funky drummer, you're a rhythm and blues drummer. But I grew up in the Midwest where corporate classic rock and roll ruled the landscape. So any exposure I got to black music directly was within the household. It was my dad, listening to Ray Charles and Brooke Benton and Al Green and Shirley Scott and Jimmy Smith and all of that. And my sisters were listening to Motown and Stevie Wonder and Sly and the Family Stone and all of that. But the radio was all Zeppelin, The Who,
Well, I was very lucky because, again, going back to my youngest days, we had, first of all, my family were all in music, which was amazing because one uncle Simon's father was Britain's top arranger and clarinetist.
Is he the guy that worked with Sinatra?
No, it's my mother's youngest brother.
Yeah, here we go. Everybody in the family is a conqueror.
There is a story. Sid, who was Simon's father, went to New York in 1937 and auditioned Frank Sinatra to be his singer and said to him, come back when you've had a bit more experience.
Oh, well, yeah.
13 years later, he's at the London Palladium with my Uncle Wolf conducting, and he says, can we go and see your brother? They go to the nightclub, and everyone goes, oh my God, look, there's Frank Sinatra. Frank Sinatra walks up to the bandstand to my other uncle, and says, have I got enough experience for you yet?
Oh, man. What a buster.
And Sid didn't know he knew who he was, but he didn't know that he turned down Frank Sinatra.
Wow.
In 1937. But Wolf, my youngest uncle, my mother's youngest brother, conducted for Judy Garland, Nat Cole, Sinatra, Duke Ellington, Benny Goodman, Danny Kaye, Jack Benny, Dean Martin, the Marx Brothers, Laurel and Hardy.
Oh, man.
These are the people I grew up with, the Andrews sisters, Sophie Tucker. It was amazing.
I got to ask a question because, I want to stay out of too serious of a ground because I know a lot of people who are watching, a lot of this conversation is going to go over their heads. But I got to ask because in my personal opinion, the superheroes of music, like of all time, are Duke Ellington and Billy Strayhorn.
Yeah.
Where do they rank to you?
I adore. I mean, Ellington, I've always loved. The thing was that we had all these records, and as a 3-year-old, I played them, and I didn't make any distinction between what they were. So I would put on a Count Basie record, and then I would put on a symphony, and then I would put on Bill Haley and the Comets.
Yeah.
To me, it was all the same, Oh, I like that. I like this. I like that.
That's me too.
So I then wound up in music, on the one hand, conducting the London Symphony Orchestra and the Royal Philharmonic. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, playing saxophone with Muddy Waters and Little Richard.
Well, that's where we were headed next. Because I know Joe's like, when y'all gonna talk about Muddy Waters? I want to know about Muddy Water. Joe wants to hear about Muddy. What was that like playing with Muddy?
Oh, it was amazing. I mean, my roommate at university was a gentleman called Alan Molina, who I'm still really close to.
Okay.
And Alan, in later life, managed Lady Gaga. He was David Bowie's agent. He was Barry White's manager. He ran Chapel Music, Famous Music. Very big in the industry.
You know, I think that I've heard of him now. Yeah.
Big. But he
I should have.
He became the social secretary at university. He was there studying to be an engineer.
Oh.
And because I was already making records and playing with people, he said to me, "Who should I book?" So I gave him all my friends so I could get up and play, you know.
Yeah, that's how you do it. Go ahead, hustler. Yes.
Green, you know, we've got to have him and we've got to have this one. Who, you know, they're my mates. Well, let's get them down. So the night of my 21st birthday party, he had booked Muddy Waters and his band. And he said to me, "Go to Brighton Station and meet them and invite them to your party," which I did. I went to Brighton Station. No sign of Muddy Waters, no mobile phones. So after about 2 hours, I gave up and went back to the college. And there was a note there, you know, Muddy came by car, I'll bring him down after the gig. So in those days, you couldn't get food after 8 o'clock in the UK.
Sure.
So Alan had said to Muddy in the band, "We got food at this gig. My friend's birthday party, come along." So they all came down.
Sure.
And a lot of my friends, like Rick Parnell, had shown up with drums and guitars and whatever. We had no back line, no mics, no amps, nothing, you know. It's like, so the roadies walked in and a girl at the party, one of the roadies said, "I know you, don't I?" And she said, "Yeah, you look familiar as well." It turned out she'd been a marshal at Woodstock and she looked after Canned Heat and they were Canned Heat's roadies.
Okay.
So they had this big reunion. "Oh, great to see you, great to see you." One of the roadies said to the girl, "What's with all the gear?" And she said, "Oh, it's such a shame, you know, all John's friends have come down and we haven't got any mics or amps." And they said, "Oh, we'll fix that." Doors opened and in comes all this gear. Rolling Stones Fragile and Keith Richards This Way Up. And
whoa.
And I'm standing there going, "What's going on? You know, what's going on?" So anyway, they set it all up. My friends got up on stage and played. Muddy came out the other room in his pink suit with the band, and he was on crutches. He'd had a car crash. He comes up to the stage and says, "Can we play?" I went, "Absolutely." And we all left the stage. As I was going off the stage, he said, "Where are you going?" I said, "Well, you want to play?" He said, No, you stay. You play with us.
Oh, watch out.
Till this is about midnight. At 7 a.m. the next morning, the caretaker threw us all out. We were still playing.
Wow.
And it was all combinations. Like my friends were playing with Muddy's band, were playing.
Yeah.
Perkins was playing with Pete Wingfield. Kerry Bell was playing harmonica with two of my friends, you know. And funnily enough, one of them, late Chris Elvin, was about sort of 5'0", and Bill Stallybrass was about 6'6". And Kerry Bell was in the middle, and they were all great harmonica players, and they were playing Duke, and it was the funniest thing seeing, like, you know,
wow, man,
sort of big, little, and littler. You know?
That sounds incredible.
That was my 21st. Unbelievable.
You got in there right away, didn't you?
Oh, incredible!
Yeah,
incredible. And But the thing was, I was already playing with people like Champion Jack Dupree and Mississippi Fred McDowell and people like that.
So you were already deep in the blues.
So I was on the blues scene, yeah. My first records were with people from Fleetwood Mac.
Right, you said Peter Green.
Peter Green, yeah.
Yes.
Peter Green and I formed a band after he left Fleetwood Mac.
Wow. Did he leave because they were headed in this different direction? Or did they head in a different direction because
he was heading in a different direction? I mean, he was... People asked me what sort of music we were playing. And the thing was, we were playing... I can't describe it. It was sort of blues. It was Coltrane influenced. It was modal. It was psychedelic. It was jazz. It was just incredible. Wow. And there was never any discussion about what we play. He would just start playing, and and this was the example I gave earlier, you know, of zoning in on what someone's doing. You know, right, he's going there. I'm going with him. And it worked. It was great.
Yes. We better talk about Monty Python before people get upset. So
Indeed.
Before we get deep into it, I just want to know who played piano on Always Look on the Bright Side of Life.
It's a jazz pianist in England called Brian D.
What he's playing is incredible. Every time I hear that song, I'm focused on the strings and I'm focused on the piano. And there's so much genius going on there.
Oh, yeah, it was a wonderful thing to do. And again, I'll tell you, I mean, for me, it's a nice story. The original record was mixed by George Harrison.
Okay.
Who also produced the film.
I was going to say, did you get to hang out with George Harrison at all?
Yep. Well, I did anyway, because I did the Ruttles.
Great. So we got to get into that too.
As well. But George Harrison said whenever he met me, he sang one of my string lines to me. Didn't say hello, John, or anything like that. He just went da da dee da 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 da. And he had it on his jukebox at home till he died. And he'd point out my counter melody on the French horns, and I'm one of the whistlers as well, you know. So I'm part of history.
What?
Can I just interject with a brief question before Michael asks 20 more? So you brought up, we know you play saxophone, and we brought up all the different arrangements that you've done. But how many of the instruments, because you're talking about now strings. Do you play strings? We've talked about harpsichord. Do you play harpsichord? Of the instruments that you've arranged for, how many of them do you actually play?
I mean, I played a bit of flute and clarinet, and I've recorded on both. I recorded on clarinet with Elton John. Heaven knows why, you know. But I did a lot of flute, and once I was producing the Moody Blues, and their flute player couldn't play the solo on Nights in White Satin, and I hadn't played the flute for about 20 years, and I went out and played it, and he mimed to it.
Whoa!
On television. So that, I mean, it was like, you know, I had hair then. I'd be going, oh God, he's not going to get it right.
Pulling it out.
But no, I mean, I knew the ranges and the sounds of all the instruments, and this is what I was saying earlier. I don't know why, because I never had formal lessons about them, but I knew what would work on a trombone, on a trumpet. I knew what would sound good on strings. I knew what an oboe could do. And it was all sort of naturally imbued in me somehow. And it's a family thing, you know, I'm very lucky because my mother learned to play piano by looking over her brother's shoulders. And her brother learned by looking over his brother's shoulders.
Yeah, it's just in your family, man. I get it.
The gene. And my kids are the same. You know, they all picked up music like, you know, oh, right, I can do that.
God bless them. Somebody's got to keep doing it.
Well, yeah. I mean, my eldest son was a wonderful drummer, and a lot of drummers actually were fans of his. Like, and I mean, Kenny Aronoff, Greg Bissonette, Peter Erskine, all heard my son. Went, wow, you know, this guy, who is he? Who's he doesn't do drums anymore.
What is his name?
His name's Robert Altman. Not the film.
Okay.
But no, he now plays guitar and percussion. And he's taught himself guitar brilliantly. Mm-hmm. And he's written stuff. He's got he's produced like there's a big rapper in the States at the moment whose name I can't remember, but he produced his tracks. All I know about this guy is he shot somebody called Megan Stallion. So,
yeah.
Oh no! You probably know who it is.
John Altman watches World. He goes to World Star. Checking out World Star.
What's his name? It's Tory, right? Tory Lanez, something like that.
Tory Lanez, probably Lanes. You know how my people mess with the spelling of everything. His name is probably Tory Lanez, and he changed that S to a Z.
Ah. Yeah, I never really paid
attention. He's not Puerto Rican. Don't call him Lanez.
That's right. Well, my son produced one of the tracks on his new album. That's all I know.
Fantastic. But you know what else? What this is proving to me is that, once again, I've had so many people come up to me saying, I really want to get my son involved in music. Like, what can I do to encourage him? And I always throw water right on him, John, and say, listen, you don't have to force anybody.
No.
To play music. If he wants it, he'll do whatever he has to do to get to it. You don't have to set up an initiative. No. It's a disease. It's a thing that some people just have in them. So they always look at me puzzled and upset, but I'm just like, this is not the life for everybody. Like the musician's life is not for everybody. No. I'm about to get on a tour bus for 7 weeks, and be, basically knees and elbows with 3, 4, 5 other grown men.
Yeah. Most of them you never want to see again as long as you live.
Oh man, I've been dreading it. I've been waking up in the middle of the night like 7 weeks. Oh man.
Well, I gave up touring. I was Van Morrison's musical director, and we were staying in the best hotels, 5-star hotels, never playing the night we traveled. Wonderful. And I just thought, no, I don't want to do this because he's going to wake up one day and my face won't fit anymore. And then what will I be doing? And I've had so many friends. I was Elton John's drummer for 17 years. Yeah, but then he got rid of you. And what do you do now?
Yeah.
Ex Paul McCartney, ex Elton John. What good is that? So I was very lucky because I was starting to get TV, commercial, record, film work. Mm-hmm. And I just went, that's it, I'm off. And they got Mark Isham and Pee Wee Ellis to replace me, which is not bad going.
No, that's your fair company right there.
I think that's, get 2 people to replace me and 2 people who are that good.
Yeah. No, you know what? When the particular version of the NPG that I was in with Prince, the next time I was at Paisley Park after that, and we had become friends again and all of that, after we'd been fired a couple years before. I went out there to do a recording session for Prince out to Paisley Park. And after we finished work, he was like, come with me. I want to show you something. And he took me to the loading dock of the sound stage where there was a instrument set up, a full PA. Larry Graham was getting ready to come to rehearsal. Basically, long story short, here comes Cynthia and Jerry walking through the door, and out of nowhere, Rose Stone appears and steps to the microphone. I'm just looking like, okay, So you had to go get Sly's band to, to try to cope with the memory of losing us. So I'm cool with it.
Yeah.
Like, if that's who you had to get to come in here behind us,
yeah.
Hey, that's a compliment in the highest order to me. So
no, I mean, I love Pee Wee. I saw him just before the pandemic started, and we always, we were sitting together at a club watching. I can't remember who we were watching actually, but might have been George Benson actually, because we're both pals of George's. So
I love George. I got to work with him on a record in the '90s. It's called "That's Right." It was, I think it was another one. Tommy LaPuma was still producing him.
Yeah.
So
such a lovely guy.
Oh man! What amazed me is every day he walked in, it was clear that he had been pondering either a harmonic concept or a rhythmic concept. Like he never played the same from day to day. He was completely inventive.
Completely.
Every day it was a different language he was speaking.
Well, the incredible thing was, one night I saw him and he'd lost his voice.
Oh boy.
So instead of cancelling the concert, he did a totally instrumental show.
And still whooped everybody.
Half the audience were complaining, we want our money back. He's only playing guitar.
Oh, wow.
And I was sitting there going, oh my God, this is unbelievable.
I'm sure it was.
Because he always gives 100%,
Not only that, he was so I think he and Tommy LaPuma together sold probably 25, 30 million records.
Absolutely.
And he was so humble and just like,
oh, totally
easygoing. Actually, Prince walked into the session. We were recording at Studio B at Paisley Park, and Prince walked in with his 335 to get Benson to sign it.
Right.
And while George was signing Prince's guitar, Prince happened to look around the room, and then he saw me behind the drums in the performance area and just ice grilled me like, ooh. Like he just like it immediately made him just, I don't know. I think he was envious.
Yes.
I think he was, it wasn't like anger, like,
No.
What are you doing in here? You work for, it was like, you get to play with George Benson for 4 days. I mean, and what people didn't understand about Prince is once he became a famous person, those casual get-togethers don't happen.
Yeah.
Like they've got to be engineered. Like he was a musician to his soul. Like he enjoyed music. He liked to play. He liked to share ideas. But when you King of the Hill, those casual sort of get-togethers and being invited to just be a part of things, that all goes away. I think he really missed that.
I'm sure he did, because something I noticed over the years, for example, ringing up people like Eric Clapton and Jeff Beck and saying, do you want to be in my band? And they go, yeah, great.
Yeah.
Nobody ever asked me.
Right. Actually, you know what? Dan, between you and I just, John Fields has been playing guitar on some of these songs I've been writing for this Netflix show I'm working on. And he's like, it's fun. Nobody ever asked me to play. I'm like, they probably think you're too busy or you just would say no. But, he said he was actually enjoying himself. And that's gratifying for me when my peers want to jump in.
No. You feel, the last thing I did before lockdown was the new James Bond film, No Time to Die, for Hans Zimmer. And I was absolutely floored and flattered that, he rang me and asked me to help him out.
Well, wait a minute. So you worked in conjunction with him or in tandem?
Yeah, I wrote some arrangements on some of the arrangements for the movie that he'd already done.
Oh, wow.
But I wrote the brass parts because he didn't feel that he could handle jazzy brass, James Bond style, John Barry.
Oh, sure.
Jazzy brass. So he called me and said, I know it's way beneath what you should be doing, but I said, oh no, I'd be delighted to do it. And then I wound up conducting all the brass as well.
Wow, man.
Which was great. And, you know, Hans being Hans, boy, did he have an amazing lineup. He had, I think, 6 chimbassos, you know, those.
I don't even know what that is.
they're like the contrabass trombones with the, you know, mixed lower than the tubas.
Whoa.
And then he had like 4 tubas and 5 bass trombones. Boy, the wall of sound, you know, that comes at you from all that. Like, whoa.
Wow.
You know,
yeah.
Out here, I can write whatever I like. And 12 French horns and.
Yeah, and it'll get done because he's the man.
I have to budget for it, you know.
I'm sorry I'm jumping all over the place with you, man.
No, it's cool.
But I have so many questions because I aspire in a strange way to do a variation on what it is it seems that you do as an arranger. Like I have aspirations, and because I have perfect pitch, my imagination runs wild in terms of just like harmonic. It just, you know, it's all wide open for me.
Yeah,
I can hear anything. But I have no skills as far as actually writing anything down or anything like that. But somebody was telling me about a very intuitive program that you can use. And I can't remember what it's called right now. But anyway, I was going to say I had the great pleasure of meeting Michel Colombier.
Oh.
And
we were very, very good friends.
Really? I had no idea.
Yeah.
He was so sweet to me. Yeah.
Oh, he's a lovely guy. We had the same agent in Hollywood.
Okay.
And I phoned him once. We were very friendly. We'd always sit together at dinners, like ASCAP dinners and things like that. And I called him once, and I said to him, you know that great album of yours with like Jaco Pastorius and all those guys?
Yeah.
Great album. I said, I want to get a CD copy. And he burst out laughing. So you'll be lucky. CD copy, yeah. It's like somebody's going to re-release it. Well, they probably have now.
I believe it, yeah.
He said, I'll tell you what. He said, I'll make you a DAT of the album. And I've got it in this cupboard right next to me.
All right.
And I made a CD from it, again, which I've got, which you've reminded me I must download onto the computer and have it there.
Well, I mean, if you want to do me a solid, I'd love a copy myself.
I will try to, yeah.
Well, all right.
I know I've got it because I moved house about 3 years ago, and everything I sort of, there's that. Oh yeah, oh yeah, great. You know, I actually put things away where they should be. Higgledy-piggledy, you know.
Sure. I mean, he was saying to me why he thought Mozart was the greatest of the composers. And he said it's because he had a sense for using the natural register of the instrument. Like if he wanted to go higher, he'd switch instruments. He wouldn't force anything to go to its extremes. Like, and that's the way his music looks.
Yeah.
When you read it, it's none of the instruments are straining to go high or low. He just would move
I had two things that I took as amazing compliments from musicians along the way. And one was my string leader saying to me, I enjoy playing your sessions because what you write is very easy to play, but it's not simplistic. I thought that's really nice, you know. And then a viola player said to me, I enjoy your sessions because all your parts that you write for us are really interesting to play. And I thought, yeah, because I'm not writing footballs and, you know, big jumps because harmonically it should sit there, you know. And that just about sums up the way I write, I think. It all makes sense, and it's all easy to play. And I could never understand. I have the same mentality with my big band, and I could never understand when people in my big band would say, "Oh, I did X's big band the other day. The music is so hard, I had to bury myself in my part, make sure I didn't make a mistake." And I said, "But if you're doing that, how are you hearing everybody else?" And
yes. Oh man.
And this is the thing, and it's also one of the reasons why I very rarely play on anything I've written, because as soon as you play on it, your focus is different. If I play on a session, if I play sax in a section, say, or solo or whatever it might be, I'm immediately thinking, did I do that well? I could do that better. Maybe I'm not quite in time. Maybe I should. That's not what I should be listening to. It's
the environment.
Everything.
It's everything.
So I'd rather just stand there and, wave my arms, even if I'm not really a conductor,
Well, because
hear the whole thing.
Because your conscious struggles are eliminated.
Yeah.
And the players are not having any sort of there's no psychological conflict within them, because they're just doing what the music, not just doing what the music says, but they don't have the onus of it being their work.
Well, yeah, and the other thing is that, and again, this is probably from, the way I came up doing it, but everything is on the paper. There's no... Obviously, if somebody's got a solo, they've got a solo. But
well, Duke Ellington used to write the solos out for his cats.
Sometimes I write the solo or part of it, or the first few bars or whatever.
I got you.
But if you read an arrangement of mine, I'm always conscious of the time factor, because if I'm doing a commercial or a movie or a soundtrack or a record, and it's got a slot, 1 hour, 3 hours, whatever it is, I can't mess about with, how do you want this phrased?
Right.
Maybe like this. Maybe there should be a crescendo here. Maybe there should be it's all on the paper. So there's no argument. You go in and that's what you play.
If it's on the paper, there's no argument. Yes.
That's what you play. Mm-hmm. And that's always been my take, and as I say, occasionally I will, if they're like when I did the movie score, I would indicate the silent movie. I did 100-minute score and conducted it live twice.
Wait a minute. Silent movie?
Yeah, Shooting Stars. It's Anthony Asquith film from 1928.
Oh, I thought you were referring to Mel Brooks.
No.
I was like, well, wait a minute. We're going down a whole other.
No. It was for the London Film Festival. Okay. They have a gala every year, a restoration gala. And this particular year, 2015, they got me to write a 100-minute score for a silent film. So a lot of it, there were solos, but a lot of the solos, I was indicating what the context of what they should be playing, plus choosing the players I knew who would... I know what he wants here, rather than, okay, I'm going to go crazy and inappropriate,
and hope for the best, right?
And hope for the best, yeah. Mm-hmm. So that's the other thing, of course, it's the horses for courses. You pick the people who are going to give you what you think, what you want.
Sure.
So, it goes down to the fact that, okay, you've got the session, you've got a rhythm section, you can only book one pianist or one bass player or one guitarist or two if you're lucky, one drummer, one percussionist. So you've got 50 friends who are going to be upset that they're not on the session, but what can you do, unless you just rotate because I mean, I'm sure it's the same, but I mean, in London and LA, there are like 60 people who could fill every chair. There really are, you know.
Mm-hmm. Wow. I'm not. Maybe we should go back to a little. Let's get a little bit more whimsical here. Did they really actually ask you to play Wallace Hartley in Titanic?
They did. That would have been a disaster.
For those who don't know, Wallace Hartley it was his band that went down with the ship, right?
Yep.
Okay. All right, boys, let's do one more for the.
Well, there was only one reason why they wanted me to do that, and it's because on quite a few of the movies that I've done, I played a part so that I can be there to make sure that all the miming was right.
Okay.
And I was the historical musical advisor, you know. Apart from the fact that they used the band who recorded all the period music to play on the ship. So you knew it was going to be right. You know,
Sure.
They're not going to stand there and go, okay, William Tell Overture. You know, no idea what they're doing. But my friend took the gig, which we thought was a 2-week gig, and he's wound up stuck there for 2 years. So,
where was he at?
Mexico.
Oh,
on location, driving him mad.
I'll bet,
because he couldn't even go out shopping or to the beach because, we might need you today. You know, sit there. You know,
for 2 years.
2 years, yeah.
Oh wow. Who was the who was your favorite director to have worked with?
Oh, no contest. Peter Chelson.
Oh wow.
I did 3 films with Peter, which were Hear My Song with Ned Beatty, who just passed away.
I didn't know that.
Funny Bones with Jerry Lewis. And Shall We Dance with Richard Gere and Jennifer Lopez.
Wow.
And again, it was all to me.
He said, do your thing.
Do whatever you want. Play me whatever you want. Even down to tracks, you know, licensed music tracks that got dropped in on the film, needle drop.
Wow. He let you choose even the entire content of the music for the films.
Because I think there's nothing worse than finding that you've got a record shoved in the middle of the score that doesn't sound anything like the rest of the score.
Oh, sure.
So
Absolutely.
I try to make everything, you know, gel together. So if there was a record, it fit with what I was writing.
It's interesting because I don't know why I'm thinking about this now, but I remember talking with Prince about working with what's his name? Tim Burton.
Oh yeah.
The Batman soundtrack. And Prince told me it was as close as he ever got to working with like a producer type. Like he just kept writing songs and either Tim Burton would like it or he didn't. And he'd send Prince back to the drawing board.
Yeah.
And I guess that happened a lot. Like there's a lot of songs he wrote for that movie that just are in the vault. And he was bragging about a couple of them that, man, this was bad. I had one called Dance with the Devil in the Pale Moonlight. And man, it was cold. But he just went, no, I don't like it. So I said, okay, sir. And I went right back to work. Yeah. And, you know, I think the fans might argue that it's not their favorite record. I like it for a lot of reasons.
Yeah.
But just the fact that, you know, that you're working with somebody who can just say, you know, I'm sure a director can do the same thing. I don't care for it. I need something else going on.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because you have to establish, and this is something I always did when I lectured on music for commercials. And it applies to movies as well.
Sure.
I would say a room full of people, name me a jazz artist. And somebody would say Ella Fitzgerald, Louis Armstrong, Miles Davis, Ornette Coleman.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say, okay, country and western, Dolly Parton, Bob Wills, Merle Haggard, and I go, do you realize, classical composer, Bach, Stravinsky, I said, do you realize how different all these people actually are? So, but if I'm talking to them, if you're briefing somebody that you want jazz, what do you think you mean?
Yeah.
Do you want Louis Armstrong, or do you want Kenny G, or do you want Miles Davis?
Yeah.
What do you want? And so many of the miscommunications stem from that. That people's assumptions of what a certain type of music is are so different that you can't actually. If a film director says, I want jazz here, what do they mean?
It's so relative.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not that you mention it. It's a miracle that when you give them exactly what they want, that's really a sizable victory. Overall. I mean, with how many different things you could do or try.
Well, the interesting thing was that I did one film, and I wrote. It was a war film, and I wrote basically some music that followed the action and became very emotional. And the director shook his head and said, I don't want you inside the scene. I want you outside the scene.
Oh.
So I had to sit there and think, what does that mean? And I thought, I think it means that he wants detached music that's not actually commenting on what's going on, but it's more an overview of the mood of the whole movie. Yes. Which I then wrote, and he went, that's exactly what I wanted.
Yes, but you have to be some kind of genius to interpret it first that way.
No, you had to. I mean,
and then to deliver it.
I did an English degree, and part of the English degree is understanding subtext. So
yeah, but what makes that even possible?
It's a psychological thing that you get used to. I think that it's going deeper into what people are actually saying. It's A, what they're saying, and B, what they think they're saying.
Well, you're bringing up an important point, which is what makes you who you are specifically in the realm of the arts is how you listen.
Yeah.
And even when you're discussing the ideas, it's also how you listen.
Yeah.
It's I tell people all the time, the most important thing about being in music is listening.
Michael gave me the best advice anyone's ever given me for music or life, which is listen more than you play. And I repeat that to everybody in and out of the context of music. But I just want to backtrack for a second because so you were already a professional musician pretty much by the time you graduated high school, right? Because you were talking, but then you also went and got an English degree.
Yeah.
So just real quick commercial break, and then we get back to Michael's question. What prompted you to get an English degree in the middle of already having a successful music career?
Right. Because music came so easily, and I hate to say that because it sounds like boasting, but
it's true.
You don't need to apologize for that, especially not around me. I know exactly what you're saying. You're just calling it. You're just saying how it is, man.
Okay, well, it was my hobby.
Yeah,
and I loved it. I never actually saw it as being a potential career. I think mainly because I had no formal training. So I wasn't going to be a pop star. I might have gone out and played saxophone in, backing Wilson Pickett or something like that,
sure.
Which a lot of my friends did. But I didn't need to because I went to university and got a degree.
Mm-hmm.
I had a grant because in those days they gave you money to be at university. So what that did was freed me up to go and jam in clubs with everybody. So I was making records, and I was also jamming with, Nick Drake, all kinds of people who are now legends. Jimi Hendrix I played with once. I just turn up with my son Peter Green. Is how I met him.
He turn up. He just turns up. Yeah.
Can I play? I'm a friend of so and so. Yeah. Thank you very much. If they like you, stay for the rest of the show.
Sure.
If they don't like you, thank you very much.
Oh yeah, I've kicked many a horn player off the stage.
Yep.
Some people can attest to it.
So I didn't really turn fully professional till I joined Hot Chocolate, which was 1975.
Wow, we didn't even start talking about that. I want to first off with that guy. Is his name Errol?
Errol Brown.
Did he always wear the stripes when they played live?
Yeah.
That was a funky look, man. He kind of looked like a straight version of Sylvester or somebody to me.
They were great. They were amazingly good live band.
Mm-hmm.
I went in as an auxiliary horn player, for their live shows, and they wanted to be like the Ohio Players. They didn't. Yeah. And Errol said to me, "We don't like our arrangements. They're too jazzy. We don't want we don't want this sort of bebop stuff going on. We want funky horn. We want James Brown." And I said, "Well, let me rewrite your horn parts," which I did, and they loved them. And that's really what kicked me into arranging.
Wow, I'm trying to remember at what point they had horns on their records, because
they didn't.
Oh, they went live. This is for the live.
They did on their albums, not on their singles.
All right, because I was going to say, what's the song? Oh, I see. So he was complaining about what was happening live with the music.
No. We were playing what was their then album following up You Sexy Thing.
Oh, okay.
And the album had a lot of horn charts on it.
I understand.
They were very jazzy. Very. Okay. They weren't bad. I mean, they were, they were quite acceptable, but they weren't James Brown. They weren't.
Sure. They weren't punchy. They weren't. No,
they were iconic. They weren't. It's like, if they had a song like, there was one song that's sort of Call the Police, I think it was called. It was, Call the Police. Call the Police. It was one of those.
Uh-huh.
And instead of what it should have been, it was like a sort of, it should have been that.
Yeah.
Like, call the police. No, that's not right.
All right. Yeah, I guess that's the other thing I was gonna touch on, is that the fact that I just presume you can say, like, how big a deal is blues music to you, to your upbringing, to your perspective on things, because
it was very important in those days, because there was that whole scene where basically the music that was completely ignored across America took off in the UK, and you had the Stones and the Yardbirds and the Downliners Sect and the Pretty Things, all these blues bands, who were influenced by Muddy Waters and Funhouse and Robert Johnson, and Eric Clapton comes out of it, and Jeff Beck comes out of it.
Yeah, I realized it was somewhat of a
Chuck Berry, the Stones come out of it, and it was very big as a thing in the early 60s, and I got completely taken by it. In fact, my earliest band and my earliest cohorts, as it were, among them was Paul Kossoff, who later joined Free and wrote All Right Now, and passed away very young. But we were all, I had Sonny Boy Williamson albums when I was 12,
Little Village. Yeah, I love
Little Walter, this was, I already knew about jazz, because when I was 6 years old, I was listening to Count Basie and Duke Ellington.
Sure.
into
also blues music. It's blues music.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess that's what I love.
Authentic blues thing, you know.
Yeah, sure.
And there weren't many sax players who wanted to play that. Most of them wanted to play jazz. Well, I did as well. I played jazz.
Mm-hmm.
I would go to the blues clubs and I would play, you know, I'd play, and I'd occasionally I'd go and see Son House, and then he'd come down to my gig, and, you know, wow. I'm going, wow, Son House, you know, how does this old man make such amazing music? Mm-hmm. I'm now 6 years older than he was then. And Fred McDowell, Jack Dupree was living in the UK. I played with him a lot. Lowell Fulton, I played with a lot. B.B. King. Amazing. Buddy Guy, I played with. It was incredible.
Well, let me ask you a question that just came to me. Like, how did you deal with, like, the manifestation of, like, glam rock and the punk movement when they came through England like that? Like, what did that do to you?
Well, the glam rock never really affected me because
I'm talking about like T-Rex and David Bowie and.
Yeah, I mean, I did work with David Bowie. I did. I scored one of his movies, and I wrote a chart for him. And but all the punk scene, you see, it happened in the mid-70s. By which time I was already writing for the BBC and
so you were already so pro that it didn't happen.
I was and then I was with Van, you know, so I was sort of parallel career.
Yeah, it didn't intersect with your.
I'll tell you a funny story about there was a vegetarian restaurant in London called Cranks, and there was a notorious evening when the Sex Pistols were on television and they were swearing. And that's really what at 6 o'clock in the evening they were, you know, effing and blinding.
This is on the BBC?
On ITV, yeah, 6 o'clock.
Ooh.
And it became a big scandal. You know, who are these disgusting yobs who are? So I'm in Crank's restaurant, and there's a little American lady next to me, and she's saying, "What's that?" And I said, "Well, it's a nut rissole." "Oh, is it any good?" I said, "Well, it's quite tasty, you know." So we paid for our food, and it was packed. The restaurant was packed, and I had a table. I put my bag on the table. So I said, "Oh, would you like to join me for lunch? Because there's nowhere to sit." "Yeah, great." You know, sat there. Said, "What are you doing in London? You know, what's going on?" She said, "Oh, I'm here because my partner, my husband, has written a cookbook, and I'm promoting it." Okay, blah 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 blah. A few minutes in to our conversation, I realised I'm sitting with Gloria Swanson. Gloria Swanson was the star of Sunset Boulevard, you know.
I'm very familiar with Sunset Boulevard.
Yeah, I'm just setting the scene for anyone who might not know, you know.
Oh man,
a long time ago. So I'm thinking, I can't believe this. I'm with Gloria Swanson.
Yeah, William Holden, right? Was the lead in
William Holden? Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Ready for my close-up, Mr. DeMille. Yeah.
Yeah, that movie freaked me out.
It's a great film.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting with her, and she says to me, "I arrived in England yesterday, and I turned on my television, and there were these appalling yobbos, or whatever she called them, swearing and blinding on television. It was disgusting. They all ought to be arrested and put in prison and blah, 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 blah." I was sort of nodding, and my head sort of went to one side, and the Sex Pistols were sitting on the next table.
Whoa!
I went, okay.
Yeah.
Shouldn't change the subject. Years later, I met up with Paul Cook of the Sex Pistols, their drummer. Mm-hmm. I told him the story. And the funny thing was, when I met him, we were at the cricket match, and he was in a three-piece suit with a tie and a bowler hat. Oh, God. But then I did a string quartet recording at Marquee Studios. and it backed onto the Marquee Club, and the Sex Pistols were on stage. And every time we recorded, the sound bled through the wall, so we couldn't get a clear take.
Man!
And I still tell people, I think the Sex Pistols, you can hear them on the fade out on the record. When the string quartet dies away, you suddenly
hear "God Save the Queen" just
through the wall.
Oh man!
Oh God! But no, I conducted for The Damned on a TV show with the Royal Liverpool Philharmonic.
Okay, you got around, man.
And I did a radio show with. I'm very good friends with Hugh Cornwall of the Stranglers, so I saw. I have a punk sort of persona.
Yeah, you got pedigree all over. You got I'm impressed by that. And as my friend Audrey said earlier, versatility is the key to success. And I totally agree. To which
they had in those days they had TV spectaculars with virtually everybody who was in the charts at the time, and I was the musical director. So, for example, there was one show, and I couldn't believe it. I digitized it recently, and I've got not only Frankie Goes to Hollywood and Spandau Ballet and Status Quo and The Damned, I've got Chaka Khan, Cameo, Run DMC doing Walk This Way. I'm thinking, God, I produced all these people.
Yeah,
I produced Cameo. I can't believe it. And Chaka Khan and Shaka, I've worked with since,
she's one of my favorite people that I've ever worked with.
She promised me that she'd cook me a meal. I'm still waiting.
You know what? I actually, I was at her apartment in Los Angeles one time, and she actually did. She cooked for me.
Michael ate your meal.
She's very good.
What's that?
I said Michael ate John's meal. That's what happened.
Oh, it's probably. But
probably my meal.
But she was standing in the kitchen cutting up vegetables.
Oh yeah.
She had this Keith Jarrett record on, and he started soloing, and she started singing in harmony with his right hand.
Wow.
And went for like 50 bars. Just like, I mean, I was just sitting at the table, like people don't realize the musicality within her. Oh, she's a real musician.
Well, the funny story about that show was we were on a jetty going out into Liverpool docks, and I had the Royal Liverpool Philharmonic Orchestra, and I had a white tail suit on, and I'm conducting, and she's doing Ain't Nobody, which I produced for the show, and she walks out on the jetty for the rehearsal behind me, so I've got my back to her, and I suddenly hear, and I look round, and she's gone over. She's slipped on the runway, and she's landed. So I'm the nearest person to her. So I run up to her and go, "Are you okay?" And she looks up at me and she says, "There's a lot of me back there. Don't worry about me."
Yeah, she fell on a nice cushion.
Yeah, she said, "There's a lot of me to cushion my fall.
She was all right. No bones broken. All that good meat just."
When I think of it, to do those shows with literally the Weather Girls, I arranged the Weather Girls singing. What was that song? Gonna wash that man right out of my hair.
Oh wow! Okay, yeah.
Weather Girls with Martha Wash. That was fun.
Yeah. I was going to say, you just remind me of the first time I was the first day that I was in rehearsal with Shaka. Shaka's got this dance she does that's very, I mean, I don't know how else to explain, but it's booty dominant. Like really, it's like she has it's this dance that only Shaka does. And she's doing it, and I'm playing, and she says on the mic, are you watching my booty? I say, yes, Shaka. She said, that's the key. Just keep watching. Because the booty's telling you
telling you where to go.
Man.
Oh, I love it. But those shows, they don't exist anymore, sadly. But you know, to have under your control, I did an Elvis tribute on the 10th anniversary of his death, and we flew in his TCB band with James Burton, Glenn Hardin, Ronnie Tutt, and Jerry Sheff, and Plas Johnson.
Norbert I write the name Norbert Putnam.
Norbert Putnam.
Yes, was he?
No, he wasn't there.
I see.
But so we had that band with James Burton backing Roger Daltrey, which was interesting.
Wow.
And then Benny King was on, who I loved working with. I did an arrangement for him. And Meatloaf was on, and he hadn't learned any of the songs. So he read them off like Marlon Brando, cue cards. And he was sort of squinting that way. And I thought, there's a really moody look, you know. He was actually reading the cue cards. That was a great show.
Yeah.
Great show. And I also did a 5th anniversary of John Lennon's passing. I did a show. And they asked me to put a band together of people who worked with John Lennon. And I got an amazing band. I got Tommy Eyre on keyboards, who arranged with a little help from my friends for Joe Cocker. I got Clem Catini, who played on about 50 #1 hit records. Johnny Gustafson from the Big Three. Big Jim Sullivan, who was the session guitarist.
Okay, yeah, I don't know none of these people, but I'm listening.
Oh, they were it, you know. The whole band. And then they didn't say anything about why these people were there. So it was like a band of middle-aged, sort of over-the-hill musicians, sort of playing away all these Beatles songs. And the audience is like, who the hell are these guys?
Oh, wow.
Typical BBC.
Yeah.
He's asking who I didn't work with and why.
Or who did you not get a chance to work with that you would have?
Yeah. I mean, the person I've never worked with and I would love to have worked with somehow, and it never came up, although I've been with him socially a lot and hung out with his band for years, is Stevie Wonder.
Oh, wow.
I never got to work with him, but I'm great friends with Keith John, with Mike Phillips.
Yeah, I know Keith John. I know Mike Phillips a little bit too. Yeah. Stanley Randolph. Yeah.
All the guys, Nathan, all the guys in his band, you know, we hang out if they come to England.
Sure.
And yeah, I've never actually played with him.
Quick tangent while you're talking about Stevie's band. Do you know Eddie Brown?
I know the name.
Okay, he's quite a unique individual to work with. You remember if you worked with Eddie Brown? He's Stevie's keyboard player.
Yes,
he's quite autistic and he's brilliant.
Oh.
And so yeah, he comes with all kinds of stuff out of left field. Anyhow, that's just a little quick. Since you were naming names, Joe next to me, although also wanted to know if either of you ever worked with Joe Cocker.
I never got to work with Joe Cocker. I mean, I knew him, but our paths never crossed work-wise, sadly. And there's Victoria. Good Lord. Hi, Victoria. I'm waving to Victoria.
I put her on there. Victoria, he took over my chair when you left. Are you talking about with Stevie or with something? Did she play with Stevie?
Brown.
Yeah, are you talking about with Stevie or with some other?
With Stevie.
Okay, I didn't know that she played with Stevie. Awesome. Victoria
was with Stevie when I first met her.
All right. Well, wow. I want to ask you another goofy question, but I don't know if I should, because I feel like you're like you always, your heart is already on your sleeve. But since you're British, Beatles or Stones?
If you asked me that question in the 60s, I'd have said the Stones.
Bluesier.
Yeah. If you ask me that question now, I'm not so sure. I think I'd be more Beatley.
Okay, that's fair. I just was wondering, because I always bring this up to you know,
I can't
just
stand
to
the
polarize people.
Beatles.
Well, it's very funny with the Stones. You know, every time I've seen them live, they've been all over the place. It's very weird to say. You know, it's. I love their records, and I'm very good friends with Bill Wyman and Charlie.
Yeah.
So it pains me to say it, but I mean, the shows have always been a bit chaotic, but they're the ones I've been to.
Well,
and I wouldn't judge by the ones I've been to. You know, they're probably.
Here's what I find ironic is that somebody told me once that the Stones mainly make their money from touring. Like their records have never really been that big.
Yeah, it's touring.
Mm-hmm. So it's ironic to me that they're a little dodgy.
Well, I would assume that's because the strongest suit that the Beatles have is such iconic songwriting.
Yeah,
and that's where you make your money, because the song place. I mean, how many movies and how many commercials and how many commercial placements are there for Beatles songs? You know,
well,
I mean,
for a while there were none because they wouldn't let
them. They wouldn't let them, and then now they do.
Mm-hmm.
And with the Beatles, I mean, I became very friendly with George, who's the one I really knew well.
That's why I figured maybe you were biased.
Yeah, Paul, I met because he wanted me to be his musical director, but I didn't need it. I mean, it sounds very what's it to say that.
Be honest, man. You've earned it. Just be.
Well, the thing was, I was doing movies, I was doing commercials, records. And I thought, well, if I dedicate myself to Paul, you know, he'll want me 100% of the time. I'll be going backwards and forwards to his studio and messing about. And I don't want it.
You're preaching to somebody right now, John Altman, because a lot of people, they hitch their star, and then they limit their own potential.
But that's what I was saying about my friend who's with Elton. You know, I mean, 17 years they went on holiday together. Elton this, Elton that, Elton the other, and then
one day it's like,
bye.
Mm-hmm. Don't let the door hit you.
I was going to say, there's a really good friend of mine that I know Michael knows. I don't know if John knows her as well. A keyboard player named Cassandra O'Neill.
I know the name.
And she's played with just about everybody, including Prince, which is, I think, how Michael knows her. And she's now a professor at Columbia School of Music. But one of the lessons that she taught me early on, when I was just starting to do some tours and stuff, and I would go out and we'd have stops in LA, and I'd go hang out with her, and she'd be doing the same little gigs that everybody else is doing. And I'm like, well, you're Cassandra O'Neill. Why are you doing these little, And she says, you don't understand. When the tour is over, there's no difference between you and me. I'm hustling for the next thing, just like you're hustling for the next thing. And at that time, I'd just gotten my first little, label tours and sessions and stuff like that. So when I'd come back home, I felt like I was too good for certain things. And she got that out of me real quick.
Why do you think I was down there at that dirty hole in the wall, Bunker's Music Bar and Grill? I played even through Prince.
You better be back there too as soon as you get off tour. I'm coming to see you. You better be right back.
I do what I want.
John Altman, have you heard of Michael's residency at Bunkers? Have you heard about this at all?
I'm sure John Altman. Have you? Oh wow, I
heard about it.
Well, then you need to stop by the next time you're stateside. Is that the correct term?
If you ever have a reason to come to Minneapolis, let somebody know.
Come and sit in with the combo at Bunkers, the most legendary cover band in the.
I'm still out there sitting in with people. Like when the Godfathers of Groove came over with Bernard Purdie and Reuben Wilson and Grant Green Jr. I'm there on stage with them.
Yeah, I got you.
It's like
I get it.
I went to Paris with them. That's what I'd like to do.
Yeah.
When the new Power Generation come over, I'm on stage with them.
Sure.
With Morris, I'll get up here and play.
Yeah, those are my homies. Yeah,
I love it.
I'm sure it's fun. Yeah, definitely.
We'll give that up, and it's something I've always, if you start out wanting to play music, that's what you want to do.
Yeah,
and it's funny what you said about Prince, because I used to play in LA with the keyboard player who you probably know, Darren Johnson.
Yes, I met Darren when he got the Miles Davis gig.
That's it, yeah. And Gary Novak was on drums. Great.
Oh man, he's a bad dude. Yeah.
I'd go and sit in. So one night, Prince comes in and sits in on piano.
Mm-hmm.
And you think, yeah, he really wanted to do that. It's no publicity, no, right. Nobody would know they would know who he was, but I mean, nobody would know he was coming in to jam.
No, and see, that's what Bunkers. I met Prince
was there as well. Ron Hargrove got up.
Sure. Roy came through Bunkers shortly before he passed.
Yeah.
And Prince used to come all the time. That's where I met him. That's how I got the job, actually.
Well, I met him at really at the Pigalle, where we had in London when he was doing his residency.
Oh, okay. When he was doing the
21 Nights.
Yes,
which I ended up playing on with Greg Boyer and Lee.
Another brilliant guy. Yeah, definitely. All right, we're getting close to the end of this interview, but I got a couple of things I gotta ask. Like, is it just an accident that Simon Phillips kind of sounds like Billy Cobham, or was he really like trying to get it?
Simon was a big fan of Billy Cobham. I know that. Right. But I think it worked both ways. I think Billy was a big fan of Simon.
No, that's completely believable to me.
I know Peter Erskine told me that the first time he heard Simon, they were doing a tour with Weather Report and the Jeff Beck group with Stanley Clarke.
Oh, man.
And they were sound checking, and Peter was up in the gods, the balcony, and Simon was playing. And suddenly he sent somebody next to him, Peter, and he looked around and it's Joe Zawinul. And when they finished the number, Joe Zawinul looked at Peter and said, "Why don't you do that?"
Oh, man. I had the pleasure of visiting. I went along to meet a composer named Peter Wolf. He had a huge palatial mansion, like out like Thousand Oaks or like somewhere. He had a lot of land, a tennis court, and a friend of mine was there to discuss something with him. And I went along, and he was saying, he said, "What do you do?" And I told him I play drums, and then the guy tells him I have perfect pitch. So he goes to his piano, and he's like, "Okay, tell me the notes that are in this chord." And I tell him, and he's and we get to talking, and he says, "Well, what are you doing in LA?" I said, "Well, I'm kind of just looking for a gig right now." And he said, Joe lives just up the road. I believe he's looking for a drummer. No, that's cool, man. Because I had heard about Joe from a friend of mine who drummed with him, who said Joe was hardcore on drummers. Like, he really and this dude is a bad dude on the drums. For him to say like Joe was just on him like white on rice, he's like, "Man, Joe Zawinul was every day he was yelling at me." I'm like, "Oh, I don't need that. I already went through that with Prince."
Well, the bizarre story, Zawinul. We went to see. Gosh, I'm trying to remember who it was with. Joe was playing. I might have been after the Syndicate.
Okay.
But I went with Vince Wilburn. And
yes, I love Vince. Vince is so cool.
Yeah, and Dugu.
Oh, man.
And we're sitting there, and there's a figure sitting at the front, all hunched up. And Joe suddenly says, "My biggest inspiration is sitting here." And I said, it's got to be Roy McCurdy, who he played with Cannonball, because Roy was there.
Okay.
And he said, "My biggest inspiration." And I thought, well, Roy probably wasn't his inspiration, he's his colleague. He said, "Horace Silver."
Oh,
right
man.
there. And everyone clapped, you know. And I know Horace. So Joe comes off and we go backstage to see him. And Joe says, "What do you think of Horace? Isn't it awful? Isn't it terrible?" And I said, "Well, you know, he's not in the best of health." He said, "He's not got long to live, has he? He's going soon. You know, what a loss it's going to be." A week later, Joe passes away.
Oh, man.
Unbelievable.
Wow.
Very, very weird. But then, of course, we've lost Ndugu since then.
Yeah. God bless him. And all those years, everybody tried to give JR credit for playing on Billie Jean, and it was Ndugu the whole time.
I know.
Man, that'd
Well,
be
we're
awful.
back to that again. You know, who gets the credit for the correct credits? You know,
we're back to that, are we? Okay. Favorite Bob Marley record? Do you have one?
Yes. Lively Up Yourself. And do you know he played at my 25th birthday party?
I saw an interview where you mentioned that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, man.
Yeah, that was interesting because he had a guitarist, well, Al Anderson, who's American.
He's from Detroit, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Al and Jerome Rimson, bass player, and I had a band in London in the 70s.
Okay.
And then Al went back to the States. That's as far as we knew. And then suddenly he rings me up and says, "Anything going on tonight?" You know, I said, "Oh, I've got my party." "Oh, can we come?"
Yeah. Can I bring Bob Marley and the Wailers to your party?
And then we hung out for the whole week. You know, it was wonderful.
Wow. Did you sense from hanging around Bob that he was about to just explode? I mean,
I went to the Lyceum gig that really took him off.
Right.
And I went with Pete Van Hook, the drummer, and I said to Pete, if he can cross over into the mainstream market, he's going to be the biggest thing in the world. Because then he was really only known for writing "I Shot the Sheriff."
All right. And because Eric covered it, probably.
Yeah. Nobody knew him as an artist himself, apart from the sort of hardcore Jamaican community.
So was that who was at the gig? Like people from the West Indies and from...
Yeah.
Wow.
It was all... basically, the Lyceum gig was packed, you know, so it was his fan base, but I think it was all pretty much Caribbean based, you know, I mean, London Caribbean rather than people who come over from the Caribbean. But interestingly, I think it was about a year later, I went to a gig and hung out with Antonio Carlos Jobim.
Wow.
And Vinicius and Ellis Regina. And again, we were the only Brits in the audience. Everybody was Brazilian.
Wow.
And then, you know, it was like foregone conclusion that he was, you know, Jobim was already a big star. You know, it's just coming to London, who's going to go and see him? You know, it's basically the Brazilian community. It was wonderful, though.
Yeah.
It really was.
I got one more question because I think I think I either read somewhere that you worked with Goldie.
Yes.
And that he was having trouble finding someone to collaborate with because his methods were unconventional. Maybe he didn't know how to communicate his ideas musically in a way other people could get to. But you took the challenge.
Oh, yeah.
And you manifested something.
He came to me and he basically said, "I've got this idea for a sort of symphonic piece." And I said, "Okay, sing me your ideas." And he did. He sang what his idea was. Mm-hmm. And I said, "Well, that's very interesting because what you're doing is you're starting on a certain note, and then you're going up 2 notes." I was explaining in his language, really.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
You're going up 2, and then you're coming down below the original note, and you're going 2 down. So there's a symmetry to what you're doing. You don't realize it, but that's, I can latch onto that and I can turn that into an orchestral, take the theme and run with it. And that's what we did. We put the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra with the drum and bass syndrome, and we were the first. We started that whole thing.
I guess my question is about, well, there's two parts, because I'm wondering if you've ever been confronted with a musical situation that you couldn't work through with the results that you were after, like where you came away unsatisfied, or maybe even maybe you lost your passion somewhere in the center of it.
I know what you mean. I mean,
like, how do you push through?
Okay, there's an interesting one that's not quite what you said, but it is along those lines. Björk recommended me to another Icelandic singer called Raga.
Oh, yes. Okay.
I thought, they're all a bit strange, There's people from Iceland.
Let me tell you something before you continue. We played the World Music Awards. It was the MTV European Video Music Awards in 1994 in Germany with Prince. And we're in the makeup room, getting touched up before we go on. And Björk comes running in because they didn't have a quick change booth. She comes in and just drops trowel, just gets naked. and then and then her assistant is helping her put on these other clothes. And we're all like,
That sounds about like her, yeah.
I'm like, wow. I mean, they must be free spirits in Iceland.
Well, she recommended me to this other girl who came in.
Mm-hmm.
And she said to me, I said, oh, right, what's the material? She said, I sing my dreams. And I said, okay, can I hear your dreams? And she started singing this, she sang something, or she gave me a demo or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And I went away, and it was literally no backing, no key, just vocals. And I listened to it and I thought, what am I supposed to do? I don't know what I'm supposed to do with it. It's like, it's melodies, but there's no key, there's no rhythm, there's no indication of anything else. I haven't a clue what I'm going to do. Haven't a clue. So I was sitting there one day and I suddenly went, I've got it. I know what to do. And I got the first one out. I went, okay, that's rooted in E flat. So what I'm going to do is a rhythmic thing underneath and a string bed and I did the whole album. And she was like over the moon. She said, that's exactly what I wanted. I don't know how I got to it. It was like completely baffling. I mean, what would you do if you just suddenly given a tape recording of somebody singing melodies without any chordal underpinning whatsoever?
Me, I'd throw it in the garbage.
Yeah. It's a challenge,
It is a challenge, but I mean, and I guess I'm not being serious, but what I'm learning from you, not only that, that you're, I mean, I guess because your education in music is not really so much a part of it. It really is like all about how you listen and also the fact that every idea has its own validity. It's not so much, what may sound like a goofy idea to one person.
Yeah.
Like, well, what can you do with it? What can you turn it into? What can manifest if you open your mind and use your imagination? Like, what can happen? Like, really, they're all ideas are valid. It's a matter of how you chase it.
That carries all the way up to very structured things that you do, because it's the same approach if I heard somebody's demo, which is them strumming a guitar and singing. And then I can sort of go, oh, yeah, now this would be great with, brushes and strings and a double bass and two French horns and a cor anglais, and I think that's what you do anyway as an arranger. You know, you flex it out.
Infinitely more easy to me. Like if somebody's pointing in a specific direction and it's within the realm of popular culture, that's to me a no-brainer. But to literally be patient enough for someone else's artistic vision, which is not rooted in anything musical, directly musical, and to still come away with a favorable result. I don't think everybody can do that.
Well, maybe you're right. Yeah, I mean, I can't think of anything that's I've gone, you know, right. I have no idea what I can do. I'm out of it. You know,
sure. You yes, and that's I guess it's the perseverance and also the belief in self. You believe that you know what you're doing, so you're going to approach it that way. Like this is just another challenge. You know, no more significant or insignificant than the last.
The whole career is meeting challenges. You know, whether it's doing a movie or a commercial or a record or even playing a gig. You know, if you go out and you're playing with someone and you know that I don't know, then but maybe they're not listening to you, and you think, well, how on earth can I fit because they're not hearing what I'm doing to go with me. So how do I go with them?
And that's why you can only work with people who can listen as intently as you. I've stopped yelling at musicians and instead started calling the right guys for the job.
But I remember years ago when we were running the 10-room jam sessions, we had a 17-year-old drummer, and I actually went up to him and said, I don't know how to play with you. And I felt terrible actually saying that, because I thought it's not what he wants to hear, you know. I said to him, look, you played so much that I couldn't find a space to make anything. And he sort of nodded his head, and I thought, right, he hates me. About 6 or 7 years later, he was booked on a gig with me, and he was terrific.
Some people need that pressure. They need that push, John. You know,
I went up to him and I said, look, I gave you a hard time last time. I'm really sorry. I felt awful afterwards, but I equally have to say to you, you were magnificent tonight. And he looked at me and said, well, I've grown up.
Yes. Maturity is the key. And most musicians are in a state of arrested development to begin with. But yes, that's the thing. It's how in what way you have to grow up. And and
it's fascinating, you know, I mean, for example, as a sax player, you know, which I haven't really talked that much about, you know, I would be on stage with Bernard Purdie and I would play one note and I would go, oh God, I'm so good, you know. And then you'd be on with someone else and you play like 50 notes and think, why do I sound so terrible? You know, and you realize what you're getting from other people.
But intent is important. You don't just, even in conversation, you choose your words. You don't just blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. Well, some people I know do.
Well, and those people probably play exactly the same way that they talk.
Yeah, I think they do. Sadly.
All right. Well, I really need a part 2 to this at some point. Maybe when your book comes out, could you come back and join us?
Yeah, February.
I've really enjoyed, and I knew I would. That's why we tried to usurp you from. Like, let's see if we can get him on our show. So,
well, it's 3:10 in the morning here. So.
Well, sorry about that. But well, you're remarkable. You already know that. And
Can I ask 2 quick questions before we let you go to bed, and you can answer them as quickly as you want. One is, so for people that aren't familiar with all of your work, what is the one example, if somebody who's watching tonight never heard of John Altman before and wants to go and listen to something that you did, what is your favorite example, or what is like the most defining, like this is the Altman sound, or what example would you suggest people go and seek out?
Well, movie-wise, I would say the tank chase in Goldeneye, James Bond, because I had like a weekend to do it, literally. Write it on Saturday, arrange it Sunday, copy it Monday and record it Tuesday and release the film on Friday.
Wow.
So that's what I'd say, because I mean, in terms of movies. In terms of records, I guess the toss-up, there are so many, but I'm proud of all of them. But I mean, Kissing a Fool is a great record.
Yes.
It's Oh So Quiet is a great record. Always Look on the Bright Side of Life is a great record.
It really is. Well,
I'm
do you have a favorite on the Ruddles soundtrack?
I love I love the whole soundtrack. But
okay.
I love doing like all the orchestral ones.
What we're doing.
Peas and Onions and Love Life and
all right.
The Penny Lane one is very funny. I like.
Yeah. Did George Martin ever say anything about all that?
Oh yes. I was introduced to him and they said, "This is John Altman." He went, "I know who John Altman is." But then he recommended me for gigs that he couldn't do because his hearing went,
Well, and there it is, man. You just you definitely where God wanted you to be placed.
Yeah.
And the rest of us have benefited greatly from that, from you agreeing with the master's plan. Amen.
Thank you.
My other hopefully very quick question, if you can do a soundbite version of it, is what advice would you have for musicians, either that are just starting out and want to have a career in music, or all of us, that are starting back at zero with the pandemic and kind of starting over our careers? From your, decades of wisdom, is there something that you would suggest for those of us who either want to or already have and already are making our living from music?
Well, apart from saying, stick with it and keep doing what you're doing and don't despair. The thing I always said when I was asked this at sort of colleges and things, was, what you've got to do is do an English degree, join the #1 pop single band in the country, and take down everything you hear off records, and then maybe accidentally get a job as an arranger because you're standing in the street and somebody recognizes you, and your first record goes into the charts. That's my story. What can I say?
Yeah. Well, for some people, it's just providence. It's just what God has in store.
But I do hope that, I don't know what the scene is in America, but it's been pretty bleak here. There's still no real live music is just about starting up again, but there are all these restrictions. You can't have a band next to each other, and you can't dance, and you can't have an audience, and so I just hope it gets back to some sort of normality fairly quickly. I mean, I'd love to get my big band out again. I really miss that.
Wow.
Well, is there anything else that you want to say before we have you back to cover the next, of the 12 installments it'll take to get through 10% of your life?
I've enjoyed it, and I will again, I'm sure. I'd love to.
Well,
so, Michael, you want a real quick rundown what we got coming up?
I don't remember.
Well, the two important things. First of all, we got one more episode in the plans before the next big thing, which is Kingfish will be joining us at the end of July. For those who don't know, Chris Stone, Kingfish Ingram, is a young blues guitarist who's basically revitalizing the genre of blues. He's been on the cover of Rolling Stone, been in Marvel Cinematic Universe, and he's a big fan of Michael. So we'll get to, I'm sure we'll share a lot of stories between him and Michael, because he'll probably have just as many questions for Michael as Michael and I will have for him. But he's a phenomenal, young musician. And then the other big thing that's coming up is, speaking of things getting back to live music, where are you going to be in August and September, Michael?
Why are you asking that question?
Because I want you to make sure that you announce your tour dates on the show, so that people.
I don't want that. I don't want people coming looking for me, man. When I go out to work, I go out to work. They see me on stage, that's great. But once I get back in the bus, I don't want to talk to nobody.
Well, I'm not saying they got to come. I'm saying they should come see Soul Asylum
if they want.
I don't know why Michael doesn't want y'all to come see him, but okay. No, don't go see Soul Asylum then.
Yeah, don't go see Soul Asylum, as a matter of fact.
So, but yeah, I'm just overjoyed with the fact that live music is slowly coming back, as evidenced by the fact that Michael has a 7 weeks tour coming up.
Yeah, see, but here's the thing, and being serious, that nobody really knows how this is going to roll out.
Yeah,
that's why I'm not. That's literally the reason I'm not, trying to. Hey, come on out. Like, COVID is still a real thing, man.
Yeah.
And I don't need to tell you that, Dan. I mean, I'm convinced between my first and second shot, I got it. I'm convinced that it happened. I didn't die, but it's I think don't let the United States government rush you out there into something you're not prepared for. I took the vaccine, but I have never been trusting of the United States government. I'm not supposed to. I'm a black man. I'm not supposed to trust any of it. But because my job is so social, I didn't really have much of a choice. I'm not young. I'm not going to spring back if I get COVID, But so I'm a conscientious dissenter, I suppose. Not even a dissenter. Make up your own mind. I had to make up my mind for me, But
cautious return to live music.
Yeah.
So we don't want to keep John any longer, but I hope we'll get to keep him again sometime soon. We'll see you at the end of July for Kingfish. Anything else anybody wants to say before we end the broadcast?
Well, didn't I literally say to Phil at the end of his thing? He was like, "Well, I'd love to be on your show." I said, "Yeah, we want to get you on, man, but we're gonna get John Altman on first." Huh? So did we nail down a date for Phil and his wife yet?
No, we're gonna have to wait for them to be back in the States, because their time zone difference is even worse than John's. It's
that's right. They're in Holland.
They're in Holland. So and they either are expecting their next baby, or she just had the baby. I don't know which one. So so they with the newborn and the time zone difference, we're gonna have to wait till they're back here.
Okay.
But as soon as they're back here, we'll have them on and we'll announce the date.
Fantastic. All right. I didn't want to forget about him.
No, we would never forget about Phil Lassiter. Go check out his project. John, did you work on Phil's project?
No, but
you were just supporting it.
He knocks me out. Yep.
Yeah.
He's a phenomenal horn arranger. Okay. Well, we don't want to keep John any longer. Go ahead. I'm sorry, John.
Sorry, I heard Prince on Arsenio Hall, as did Jerry Hay. And within about a minute of hearing it, we were trying to find out the guy
who was the horn player. Yeah, who put the horns together? Yeah.
Who's the guy? Who arranged this? Yeah. Jerry was messaging me, and I was messaging him. We got to find this guy. We got to find this guy.
Wow, to have Jerry Hay looking for you, and you're a horn arranger. That's high praise.
His horn arrangements are that distinctive, and that's good. I mean, he's one of the. I'm not a horn player, and he's one of the only horn arrangers that I can spot a Phil Lassiter arrangement at 50 feet out of a clock radio. Like his horns sound like him, and it's just an amazing sound.
Knocks me out. So
right on.
And Jerry, and you don't get better than Jerry Hay.
No, you do not.
He's the greatest of the great.
Yeah.
So.
Well, go get some rest, John.
2:30.
Yeah. I'm going to bed.
Take care of yourself, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you much.